Hi, welcome to Train Signal. My name's Bill, and this lesson is paragraph options, or how to work more effectively with paragraphs. We're going to start by looking at what is a paragraph. Now, I know that may seem like a simple question, especially to you, because I know you're an intelligent person. You prove that simply by becoming a Train Signal customer. But a lot of people aren't really clear on what that means, and we'll go ahead and spend some time looking at that. Then we're going to go and talk about non-printing characters. We'll go and see how they can help us make a little bit better sense of what's going on in our documents. We'll show you how to go ahead and create first line indents, hanging indents, and indent an entire paragraph. We'll show you how to set your margins and how not to. We'll then go ahead and talk about tabs. A lot of people have a lot of questions about tabs. We'll take a look at those, what they're for, and how to use them. We'll go ahead and work with lists, bulleted lists, numbered lists, and the new multi-level list. Multi-level lists are not new, but some of the features that we can go ahead and use to create them are line and paragraph spacing, setting the distance between your lines of text and between your paragraphs. In that same vein, it'll take us right into paragraph control, trying to go ahead and control the way the paragraphs break on a page. Then lastly, highlighting our paragraphs by adding borders and shading. A lot of fun stuff this lesson. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Our first section is going to be paragraph indents and page margins, or understanding the difference between them. We're going to start with a discussion about what is a paragraph, which will take us right into using the paragraph marks, and we'll take a look at those and what benefits we can derive from using them. They're really kind of neat. They may be annoying to work with, but it's very easy to turn them on and off so we can really go ahead and understand what's going on in our document. Then we'll talk about indents, first line, hanging, and left indents, how to set them from the ruler, from the paragraph section, and from the paragraph dialog box. Remember, lots of different ways to do the same thing because everybody works differently, so Microsoft gives us all different ways to do stuff. And lastly, in this section, setting the margins from the page layout tab. And we can also set our margins from the dialog box. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go on to my Microsoft Word and let's open a document. Let's open up Letter from the Chair. Okay. In this first section, I want to start with a discussion of paragraphs. What is a paragraph? A paragraph in Word is a little bit different than what we think of a paragraph in writing. We've been taught that a paragraph is a group of sentences that relate to the same subject or topic. Word is unable to read what we've written here and can't decide when there should be a new paragraph. You have to decide when to start a new paragraph. And you start a new paragraph by hitting the Enter key. Every time you hit enter, you create a new paragraph. Those of us who are of an age where we remember typewriters, especially a manual typewriter, you remember that when you wanted to start a new line, you had to hit that carriage return, or with an electric, you'd hit that enter. Creating a new paragraph was simply done by leaving a space or indenting a new paragraph. With Word, we don't have to hit anything to continue our line as we're typing. It wraps the text for us. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to come to the end of this sentence here, and I will just start to type, and you'll see that I didn't have to hit my enter. It just continued onto that next line. Let me get rid of that. If I wanted to start a new paragraph after this line, I would have to go ahead and hit my enter. Every time I hit enter, I start a new paragraph. Don't forget that. We have a way of very easily locating where those new paragraphs are. We have a lot of things in here that we don't see right now. Things that don't print if we're going to print this document. You see this little symbol here. It looks kind of like a backwards P. That's the paragraph mark. And when I hover over it, you'll see that it is my Show Hide Paragraph Marks. This hides the non-printing characters. Let's go ahead and click that. And you'll see them here. And we will see that every time someone has hit the Enter key, it has created a new paragraph. This little backwards P means that it's a new paragraph. And I want you to think about that. Think about what's happening. This little sentence right here, letter from the chair, that's a paragraph. This empty line, in the eyes of Word, is a new paragraph. Here's a new paragraph. Right here we go ahead and click to start a new paragraph. Here we went ahead and started a new paragraph. You can see everywhere there is a new paragraph. If I went here and hit enter, you'll see my paragraph symbol there. Even though I haven't left a space, Word will think of this as one paragraph and think of this as one paragraph. And if I go here and hit enter again, that's another paragraph there. I don't want those there, so let me undo those. We're going to use these paragraph symbols. We're going to show these hidden marks because they really are helpful for you to see and understand exactly what's going on. And let's talk about setting indents on our paragraphs. There's a couple of ways to do it. We are going to start by using this little thing here. Now, a lot of people get the wrong idea about this. They think it's one symbol that they can go ahead and use to set their indents with. There's even people out there who try to use it to set the margins. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is actually three separate symbols, three buttons, which all have three different uses. This thing is in three parts. The first one we're going to talk about up here at the top. It's this little diamond, not diamond, I should say triangle, pointing down. This sets our hanging indent. Let me do this. I'm going to get my mouse pointer, the tip of that arrow, right there, right in the middle of that thing. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button. Now notice what happened there. I got a dashed line along that left edge of my page, and I'm going to drag this in. I'm going to take it to, let's say 1/4 of an inch, which is right about there. And when I let go, you see it indents just the first line of my paragraph. Let's go ahead and let's pull it back. Now, if I want to go ahead and I want to create what's called a hanging indent, I'm going to go to this second part of this symbol. It is this little triangle and the point is going up. Same thing. I'm going to get my mouse right in the middle, hold down the left mouse button, and drag. Let's take this one over 1/2 of an inch. It'll be more dramatic. And you see that's what creates a hanging indent. That indents everything underneath this first line. It leaves it hanging out there. Hanging like a sleeve. Alright, let's pull that back. And then the last one here. This is actually indent the entire paragraph. I'm going to hold it's a little rectangle there. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button, get my pointer right in the middle, drag that over. Let's be dramatic again. And you'll see it indents that whole paragraph. And I had my insertion point right here. I didn't have it up at the beginning of this paragraph. It works on that paragraph just like that. Let's pull this back. If I wanted to go ahead and set all of my paragraphs, indent them all, or actually let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's say that I want to do a first line indent for all of my paragraphs. I did Control A to select all. And it did that for all the paragraphs that I had selected, even this one, because remember, this is a paragraph. And look at here, it even indented the empty spaces, those empty lines. Remember, paragraph doesn't even have to have any text. Every time you hit that enter, it's a paragraph. There are some tools up here that we can also use. See this one here, increase indent. I'm going to click that and see it indented my whole paragraph for me 1/2 of an inch. Maybe I wanted to go an inch. Every time I hit it, it increases that indent by 1/2 an inch. If I want to take it back, I use this one, the decrease indent. Now, you'll also notice here we have the paragraph section again on our Home tab, and there's another dialog box. Let's open that up, and let's take a look here at our indentation on the Indents and Spacing tab of our paragraph window. Indentation, left. Notice I see my preview. It's not live preview. I can't see it happening here, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and choose OK. And again, it indented the whole paragraph. But if I go here and set this to 1/2 inch and over here to special, I can choose first line. And see, it puts the 1/2 inch there, 1/2 inch there. And see what happened? It indented the whole paragraph 1/2 of an inch and my first line 1/2 of an inch. So if I take this off, oops, going in the wrong direction. And you can always watch to see what's happening here. Let me go back up here where we had it. See? The whole paragraph is indented and the first line. Oh, and you don't have to use these little arrows. You can just select that and type that value in. Just like that. And that's indenting our paragraphs. Let's go ahead now and talk about setting those margins. In Word 2007, the margins are set by default to 1 inch all the way around. Remember, we talked about that before. You'll see that this blue area on the ruler represents that margin. And the margin is the white space between the top, left, right, and bottom of your text. It gives you a nice border of white space around your page. Like I said before, a lot of people go ahead and try and use this symbol if they want to increase or decrease their margin. But that's not really the margin. Like I already showed you, those are for our indents. And see, if the margin had changed, this would be white. To change our margins, we simply need to go ahead and move to our Page Layout tab. And there it is, big as day, margins. Let's go ahead and let's click that. Our normal margins, like I said, 1, 1, 1, 1. If I wanted to go ahead and make my margins a little bit smaller, I can choose narrow, 1/2 of an inch. And see, this is what I was talking about. These spaces are now blue. I have other ones here, moderate. Top and bottom are 1 inch, but the left and right are 3/4 of an inch. I can also go ahead and, if I don't see a margin setting in here that I like, I can choose custom margins. And those of you familiar with the old versions of Word, you've probably seen this before. I can go ahead and I can set my margins to whatever I want. But I like to go ahead and stick with the normal margin. I can also get to that window here through my page setup dialog box. I'm going to show you one more thing, and this is really kind of tricky to play around with. You can try it, but if you're very precise and you want all of your documents to share the same margin, you're better off setting it, either choosing one of these or taking this. But if I drag my mouse over here, you see I've got that double-headed arrow now. Those of you who are familiar with Excel, this is going to be a familiar concept to you. If you go ahead and hold on your left mouse button, now see I get my dashed line horizontally. I can pull that up and move my margins around that way. But it's not necessarily very precise. I can also do it here. Although it gets a little bit tricky. You got to get it right at the right spot to do it that way. I'm just going to go back to normal. So like I said, you can do that from the ruler. It's just a little bit tricky, so be very, very careful. If you want to try this and you want to get used to it, practice with it first. But if you want a consistent look, set your margins through here. All right, well that pretty much wraps up this exercise. Let's go ahead and let's close it. No, I'm not going to save any changes. And that wraps up this section. We went ahead and we talked about what a paragraph was. Remember, every time you hit enter, you create a new paragraph. We're going to show hide our paragraph marks using this symbol, and we'll use that throughout the day. Actually, throughout the entire course, we're going to use that. We looked at our hanging indent, our first line indents, and our left indents. We accessed them from the ruler, the paragraph section of our home tab, and from the paragraph dialog box. And then we showed you how to set the margins from our page layout tab using the dialog box. And I even showed you a little extra there, added value. Showed you how to go ahead and move it using the ruler. That wraps it up for this section. Let's go on to the next one and let's talk about tabs. In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and talk about managing tab stops. We'll talk first about what is a tab and how is it used. We'll then go ahead and show you how to set those tabs, how to manage them. You can manage them from the ruler and also from the dialog box. My little table over here shows you the different types of tab stops. And like my definition here says, a tab is a place where the insertion point will stop when the tab key is pressed. And they're used to help align text. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Tabs, like I said, are used to help us align text. I'm going to open up a new blank document first. By default, the tabs are set at every 1/2 of an inch. These big marks here are 1/2 inch. The 2, the 3, this one here is 2 1/2. They're 1/2 inch. Now you can't see me do this, but on my keyboards on the left side, mine happens to be right next to the Q, which is where it'll be for most of you unless you're using a laptop. It might be somewhere different. Go ahead and hit your tab key, and you'll see that it has moved over to 1/2 inch. And every time I hit my tab key, it moves it over 1/2 inch. In fact, let's do this. You see that little symbol there, that little two-headed arrow? Like it says, double click to hide the white space. I'm going to do that right now. I don't like doing that. I like to see how my pages lay out, but we'll do it for right now because now you can see my insertion point move every 1/2 inch. And like I said, that's where they are by default, every 1/2 inch. Now, if I want to set a tab somewhere, let's say that I want my text to be set up so that it is on the left edge of the text is at 3 inches. I can go ahead and set a tab there, and when I use my tab key, it will skip all of those tabs up to that one. Let's take a look at that. In this document, and actually I'm going to zoom out a little here, like it says, my tabs have been set at 2 inches. And you can see what's going on. There are 5 different types of tabs. There's a left tab, a center tab, a right tab, a decimal tab, and a bar tab. And we'll go through them one by one. How do I set a tab? Well, it's very, very simple. You see this little symbol over here? It kind of looks like an L. That symbol is for the left tab. But I know you're saying, Bill, you said it wasn't an L. It's not really, and you'll see why I say that in just a minute. I'm going to switch back to our blank document. When I go ahead and I want to set a tab, and I'm going to set this one at 3 inches. It's real complex. Pay close attention. Can you note the sarcasm there? I take my mouse pointer and I put it right up here, right on the bottom of the ruler, right where I want it. I'm going to set mine at 3 inches and click. And there's my tab, and you'll notice that symbol is the L, just like it was here. So if I come back here and I hit my tab key one time, see, it took it all the way over there. And if I hit enter to come down one line, my tab is still there. And as I use it, it helps me align my text to the left edge. Pretty cool, huh? Not that hard. All right, let's close that document up and let's start a new one. To change from a left tab to a center tab, and if you look here, you'll see that this is what our left tab did. Notice when I click there, we see our left tab. Let's click in here and we'll see our center tab. The center tab centers my text at that point. And to change to a center tab, I'm going to click on my little square over here, my little L, and see that becomes the center tab. So I'm going to put my center tab here at the 3-inch mark again, and you'll see it resembles that. And when I tab over, you'll see it centers my text on that tab. And I can go ahead and I can align my text on a center point. It's very similar to doing this because I'm in the center of my document, but if I want that somewhere else, well, let's say that I want this to be centered at 1 inch. Well, easy way to do that is go ahead and grab all of that text, get your mouse on that center tab, and pull it over. You see I'm dragging that line. And now my text is centered there. You have to make sure that you grab all the text that you want to redo because, see, I just had my insertion point in Ed's name and it just pulled him over like that. Let me undo it. I have to select them all. That's why sometimes this comes in handy. Like that. All right, let's close this one up. All right, let's go ahead and let's open up another new document. And we're going to change to our right tab. So I'll click through here again and go out here, tab over, and you can see it starts aligning my text where that tab is. Now, past the tab, you see I've still got my tabs at every 1/2 inch. And when I come down to the new line, it's still there. Decimal tabs. Now, decimal tab is my favorite. Have you ever tried to line up rows of numbers in Word? And, you know, because the numbers are different lengths and the characters different size, they always kind of look sloppy. Use that decimal tab and it will line up all of those decimals. Change that to this symbol. Looks like the center tab with a little dot there. I'm going to tab over to it. Tab again. and you'll see what I was talking about. It lines up the decimals for us. All right, the last one, the bar tab. Now the bar tab is, let's go through, oops, is here. It's just a straight line, and it does exactly what we see here. It puts that bar in. Now see what I've done here is I've put in a left tab, then my bar tab, then the right tab. So this bar just simply separates these phone numbers and this text. Let me go ahead and show you how we do that. I'll set a left at 2, and I will set my right at 3. And I know you're like, hey, wait a minute, Bill, where's the bar tab? I'm going to show you something that's really cool to do with the bar tab. All right. Tab over again. This is a list of some of our instructors. You get the idea here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select that whole thing, all three of us, and I will change here and put in my bar tab right in between and see what it does. Kind of neat, huh? Now, I'm going to grab these three because I want them a little bit closer to the line. And I'll do the same with this. Kind of neat stuff, huh? Let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. You see down here, I'm at the line underneath, and you see my left tab and my right tab, but we don't see the bar tab here. I see it here. And actually, these left and right are still here because I moved them, and I moved only those three lines and added that bar tab only to those three lines. So you have to be careful with those tabs. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our hidden characters, and you'll see these little arrows indicate that you have been tabbed over to a tab stop. So these three to here, these three to here, like that. Now let's say that I don't want this bar tab here anymore. How do I get rid of it? How do I get rid of these tabs? Well, just like it was very complex to go ahead and put a tab on the ruler, it's just as complex to go ahead and take a tab off of the ruler. I'm going to get rid of the bar tab just because it's interesting to look at. I'm going to be in this line here. I'm going to take my arrow right up to that bar tab, just like I did when I set it, hold down my left mouse button, and pull down like I'm pulling that tab off of the ruler. And see, it took that tab stop out just on that line. Now if I wanted to do all of them, I'll go back there and pull it that way. And maybe I didn't want these. It'll be like that. And they set themselves to the default tab, which is at 2.5 inches here. But if I move these and tabbed again, they would go again to one of those default tabs at 3 inches. Pretty neat, huh? Tabs aren't that hard now, are they? That you know about this. And you'll notice as I click through these, we also get these guys. It works the same as the tab. If I wanted this hanging indent to be here, rather than pulling it like I showed you before, I could get that symbol there and click and set it there. Alright, let's go ahead and let's take a look at some other places that we can deal with tabs. I'm going to go here to my paragraph section here, my dialog box launcher. I will open up my paragraph window. We saw this before, remember, and down here in the lower left corner you'll see tabs. Go ahead and give that a click, not clip, Bill. And you'll see that one set at 2.38. That's this tab that I just set. If I wanted to clear that tab, I would select it here and I could choose clear. Oh, I was in this line. I thought I was here. And see, it just took it out of that line. It's still here on those. If I wanted to go ahead and set a new tab, same thing. I would put it where I want it to be. Let's say I want it to be at 4 inches. Set it. OK. And now I've got one there. And I know you're saying, Bill, it's at 4.5. That's because we tabbed once already, remember? OK. The default tab stops are at 1/2 inch, like I said, but you can change that if you want. If you want them smaller, you want them further apart. You can go ahead and choose the type of tab you want, left, right, center, bar. And you have leader lines. Now, I'm going to go ahead again, set my right tab here. And I'm going to go to my paragraph, tabs, and choose a leader line. Hit 2. I like the dotted line. Click OK. And then when I tab over, it draws my leader line right to that point. Ever have to do a table of contents or a program or a chart, a song list, where you have things like this? It's pretty cool, isn't it? See, now you see that at that time I didn't get the leader line because I didn't set it first. But don't worry about that. Let's undo. And we also noticed that we didn't have this. I added that. But let's go and choose all of those rows we want to add it to. Click that. Tabs. Make sure our leader line is whoops. Did I just turn that off or did I select it? Selected it. Okay. Now, when I tab, it gives me exactly what I want. And that's our tabs. That left tab, right tab is only on these 4. It's not here. It's not, oh, it is on that one. But if I want to get rid of it just on that row, I have to make sure my insertion point is in that row. And remember, if I want to set tabs or remove tabs for more than one line, I have to select them all. And that's all for tabs. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the next section, lists. And here we're going to go ahead and we are going to create bulleted and numbered lists. We'll do it from our home tab very easily. We will change bullet and number styles from the lists library. We'll go ahead and show you how I can use something other than just those round discs. We're going to create a multi-level list. And we will change multi-level list styles. And then I'm going to show you one of the things that everybody goes and asks me, how do I stop creating a list? So let's go ahead and let's get started. First thing I need to do, I'm going to pause here. You guys wait for me, and I'm going to close up these other documents. Alright, let's go ahead and we will look at everybody's favorite Stone Age family, the Flintstones. I've already typed out this list. I have Bedrock, the town that they're from, the family Flintstones, of course, Fred and Wilma, and their daughter Pebbles. I want to make a list out of this. It's very easy. I can highlight the list, and from my paragraph section up here, I have this box, which is bullets, and when I click on it, there's my bulleted list. Not that difficult. Let's say I want a numbered list. Well, that's this one here. Click there, and there's my numbers. Again, not that hard. But let's say that I don't want the numbers right now. I want to change it to some other kind of symbol. Well, you see the little drop down here, this little arrow. Click on that, and we will see my bullet library. Remember my alien head from before? I can go ahead and use all kinds of different symbols as my bullets. And if I go ahead and I don't like any of the ones that are in here, I can define a new bullet by clicking that button. Get to this window and click on symbol, and you'll see it opens up my symbol library again. Remember, we saw this before. Normal text. These are all the different symbols that are in this basic font, but remember our web dings. Now I can make any of these my bullet point. This is where I got my alien head, if you remember. Let's try something else. Let's go ahead up here and try something like that. One question that people ask me a lot is, Bill, can I change the color of my bullet? You sure can. I'm going to select my list again, go back up here, define new bullet again, choose font, and pick a color. Just like that. We can also go ahead and change, instead of numbers, I can go ahead and make it letters, Roman numerals, letters with the closed parenthesis, whatever I want. Numbers. You know what, though? Let's get that color something a little bit brighter, maybe a nice blue. Now I want to go ahead and talk about multi-level lists. Part of the reason why I use this list is because we have several, if you will, levels here to our list. Bedrock, of course, is where they live. That would be the top level. My Flintstones, that's the family name. That would be 2. Fred and Wilma would be a 3rd level, and Pebbles, of course, their daughter, would be 4th. So we want to go ahead, it's kind of an outline look to it, if you will. We're going to go ahead here, and we're going to select all of them, and we're going to go to our multi-level list. Now, just clicking on that doesn't automatically change it. You can select the style that you want. Now, I want for initially, well, what the heck, let's use this one initially. To indicate something as the 2nd level, get your insertion point right in front of it, hit Tab. See that? Tab twice to go 2 levels. 3 to go more. I believe that we can go down 9 levels. Well, let's take a look. We go here again and define new multi-level list. There we go. Yeah, we can go 9 levels. That's what I thought. So we're in level 1, the top one, Bedrock. Let's go and let's change that. See my number formatting? We can go ahead and choose different number styles. I can also choose bullets. Let's go ahead and let's do Roman numeral there for 1. Level 2. That's going to be the Flintstones. Let's make that capital letters. Level 3. I'm going to leave that bullet. And this is not 4, that's still 3. They're on the same level. And level 4 will be pebbles. We'll change that to 01 because she's our first child. And that's our multi-level list. Now if I like this list style, I want to use it again. That's great, but be aware that you can't use this list again, this style again. It's not transferable to other existing documents. It doesn't work the same way these styles do. It doesn't have a name. I can't save it in my styles library. However, what I can do, let's go ahead and let's select it again. Go up here to my multi-level list, and as I scroll down, I will find that style here, Lists and Current Documents. Let's right-click it and choose Save in List Library. Now that's going to be in this list from now on for us to go ahead and use. Let's close this up. In fact, let's close up Word entirely. We'll open it up again. Create a new document. Let's go ahead and create a new list. Why don't you guys wait here, and I'll be right back after I type out this list. Okay, this time I went ahead and did a list for I guess our second favorite Stone Age family, the Rubbles. And I want to go ahead, I'm going to select my list. I already tabbed over to do my indents. And I'm going to choose from my list library. Where is our list? There it is, right there. And that's going to be there for all of our new documents from now on. So if you create a list that you want to use, a list style like this that you want to use over and over again, remember, go here, select that list, right-click, and save in the list library. Now, if I want to go ahead and I want to stop a list, how many times have you gotten to this place where you've got here to the end and you hit enter and it's like, no, that's not what I want. Keep hitting enter. Eventually, it'll take you back, or you can use backspace the same way. It'll help you get away from that list and you can start a new one. Oh, no. Let's not start this again. Alright, gang, that about does it for lists. Let's close this up. Nope, we don't need to save the changes. And we're going to go to another section. Let's go ahead and talk about controlling paragraph spacing. This is going to be a real fun lesson. We're going to go ahead here, and first we'll start by understanding paragraph versus line spacing. We're going to control the line spacing from the Home tab. We'll look at line spacing, spaces between our lines. Then we'll talk about paragraph spacing. It's different from line spacing, and I'll show you why and what kind of things we can look for. Then we're going to look at the paragraph dialog box and talk about widow and orphan control, keeping with next and keep lines together, and then lastly, paragraph borders and shading. Lots of fun ways to accentuate a paragraph. Why don't we get started? I'm going to go up here and I'm going to open up a new document. Not a new document, one that I have already. Let's go ahead, I'm going to open up this one. There. As I told you before when we were talking about styles, this has not been created, or I shouldn't say that, this does not have the normal new style that we have in the 2007 version of Word. Actually, I have one, there we go, that has been created using the 2007 style, and you see a big difference between the two besides the text, the font. This is Times New Roman, but that is Calibri. But there's a lot more spacing in here, isn't there? Let's start by taking a look here. The spacing between our lines, and to do this I'm going to highlight all of the lines in this first paragraph. let's go to our paragraph tab, and we will choose line spacing here, and you'll see it says single. I also have 1.5, which will make that spacing a line and a half. But that is not exactly what's going on here, is it? That's not a line and a half, and it's also not a single line. Let's go take a look at what's going on. Line spacing, multiple line spacing at 1.15. That's the new default spacing for our lines in Word 2007, 1.15. If I go back down to single, that looks a lot more. Oop, I guess I didn't change this back. Like this, doesn't it? And that's a personal preference. Let me back out of this. You'll also see here one of our styles is no spacing. That's the normal spacing, that's no spacing. That takes the space down to 1, single spaced. I can also go here, but because this was set as the normal style for this, I can't change it there, but I could go here and do that so that that's more in keeping with our 2007. Let's go ahead now and let's talk about paragraph spacing, but let me go here and set this back to single. And we see that we have one line, let's look at our hidden characters, between our paragraphs. In here, well, we have an extra paragraph in there, but if I delete that, that's a little bit more than a standard line. What's happening here, and we'll need to go to the Page Layout tab, is we have our paragraph spacing. This one is the space before, and this one is the spacing after the paragraph. You can go ahead and set the space after paragraph. See, what we had to do here to get a paragraph was, to get a line spacing, I had to enter a new paragraph. Here, they were on. Let me go ahead and do this again. But when I took them off, see what happens here. It gives me a lot more space that I didn't want. To get that same kind of single line space, this has been set to 10 points after each paragraph. Now, if I change this, I can increase it, but if I change it to 0, it takes it down. Remember, I'm in this paragraph. It gets rid of that space. So at this point, to get the same effect, I would want to do this, and that's what's happening in here. So by default, they have given us that 10 point. Oh, again, I'm in the wrong paragraph. Set it here. There we go. So that we can go and increase the space between paragraphs without creating a new paragraph. I can also increase the space in front of a paragraph. But at that point, in fact, let's do this. This is 110. Yeah, let's do it here. Oops. And you get essentially the same thing. Let's go ahead and let's be consistent all the way through. Just like that. And if I do the same thing here, You see by default these are set to 0. Let's make that 10. Oop. Make this one before. There we go. It gives me that same spacing. And that's our paragraph spacing. Any questions? Just remember, and let me close that and open it back up. That this increased spacing is because, like we've been trained in the older versions, we add more paragraphs than we needed to. And remember, we talked about that before. It's unnecessary to add all of those extra paragraphs. We have the same look that we did with this one, but we have less paragraphs. Okay, I'm going to close both of these up. Let's open up another document. Okay, you remember this one? We took a look at it before. We're going to talk about widow and orphan control, keeping with next, and keep lines together. When I scroll down here, we see that, actually, let me zoom out some more. We see our paragraphs here have been indented, our list paragraphs. And conveniently, paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 here split our page. And that's okay. But watch what happens if I go ahead. Let's take this sentence here, and I want to paste it at the end. Now it brings it down, and that's fine. Let me add a line in there. That's exactly what you would expect it to do. We now have 2 lines here. But watch what happens. Now you would think if I cut this out, it would still leave this single line. But when I delete it, it actually pulled another line from the bottom of here and put it down there. Widow and orphan control is something that Microsoft Word does by default. A widow is defined as a single line at the bottom of a page. An orphan is defined as a single line at the top of a page. It doesn't look good. It's not a good way to begin a new page or end a page with just a single line of a paragraph all by itself. So what they've done is turn down widow and orphan control so that there will always be at least 2 lines at the top or the bottom of a page. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to go back to our paragraph tab, and you will see that we have widow and orphan control here. Let's uncheck it. It's checked by default. See what happened? Now it left me with that orphan at the top because I turned it off. And you see that it leaves us the orphan here. If it were the other way around, if there were a blank line at the bottom, that would be the widow. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things in here. In fact, I want to go and copy some more stuff and paste it at the end here. We've split that paragraph. Let's go ahead and select it now. Go to our paragraph, and this time let's choose Keep Lines Together. Keep Lines Together will avoid splitting a paragraph between pages. Widow and orphan control is just going to keep it from leaving 1 line, but you noticed we had 2. Keep Lines Together will keep the whole paragraph together, but you have to be careful with that, because look what happened here. I got a lot of white space now. Although it did keep all of this paragraph together, it may not exactly be what you're looking for. All right, let's take a look at that last one. Let's go up to our paragraph. Keep with next. Oh, wait, you know what? Let's do this. Make sure we're in this paragraph. Keep with next. Keep with next will keep paragraphs together on the same page. And when I hit OK, you say, Bill, nothing happened. Remember what's happening here. I've got two more paragraphs, so it's keeping this paragraph with the next paragraph. But if I take that one out, see what happened? It pulled that paragraph number 1 off of this page and put it on here. So you have to be careful with these and really play around and make sure you understand what's going on with them. I want to do one more quick thing. Okay, right there. Give us a little more space. And let's go back up here. And let's talk about paragraph borders and shading. I'm going to go and select this paragraph here. I'd like to make it stand out. I want to put a border around it, put a nice colored fill. And remember, we had some of these had styles like that. This one does not, but that's okay. Because what I'm going to do is go here to this little symbol. That is my borders. And you'll see I have different border styles. If you guys are familiar with Excel, you know all of these. I'm going to choose the outside border, and that will give me a very thin black border around my paragraph. But what I want to make it a little bit more fun. I'm going to go here. Let's go ahead and let's start adding some things to it. We want to first, let's change the color. Let's make it blue. And you see a little preview here of what we're looking at. It hasn't changed here, but that's okay. Actually, let's do this. See? Now I'm going to go back here again, and let's start to change the style. I've got all these other kinds of border styles I can use. I'm going to use... No, not that one. What do you think? This one, you're right. No, this one. I know you're saying, Bill, stop it. Let's go back to our blue. Choose OK. And there you go. I can put a little drop shadow on my box. But let's just go back to our basic box and look at shading. We can create a fill color. Let's pick a nice light blue. Gives us our preview. You know what? Let's put the shadow back on. There, just like that. Alright, that about does it for our paragraph spacing and our line spacing. Let's close this document up. In this section, controlling paragraph spacing, we took a look at setting our line spacing. Remember, in older versions it was at 1.0. In 2007 it's 1.15. Showed you how to change that from the gallery through the menu. It's very, very easy. We also went ahead and talked about paragraph spacing. Remember, our paragraphs now have 10 points between them, whereas before we didn't have any. We would have to add another paragraph. We talked about widow and orphan control. Remember, widows are that single line at the bottom of a page, and orphan is the single line at the top of a page, and that's on by default. Keep with next, like it says, keeping paragraphs together on the same page, and keeping lines together keeps us from splitting a paragraph between pages. And lastly, we went ahead and we looked at those paragraph borders and shading. That about wraps it up for this section and this lesson. It's time for us to talk about what we learned. We started by defining paragraphs. We talked about what a paragraph is. We also talked about how to find those paragraphs using our hidden characters, our non-printing hidden formatting symbols for that paragraph mark. We also saw how that could help us with tabs. We talked about indenting our paragraphs using those icons and how to set the margins or not set the margins using them. We unlocked the mystery of tabs. We looked at our 5 different tab styles, how to set them, how to remove them, how to use leader lines. We created bulleted, numbered, and multi-level lists, and we changed them. We changed the styles. We created a style that we could leave in our library. We went ahead and talked about line and paragraph spacing, which is what we just did, and we also accentuated our paragraphs with borders and styles. That about wraps it up. Thanks for joining me in this lesson, Paragraph Control.